What is going on, my friends? Welcome to Create and Destroy. I'm your host, Dan Donnarumma, and this is episode number 26. So shit, I've got a really exciting episode with a great guest for you all today. But before we get into that, first, we got to talk about Game of Thrones. We're 2 episodes into the final season, and shit, we got to talk about it. So over the last 6 months or so, I have really fallen down the Game of Thrones rabbit hole. I've been following the show for years now, but it's really sucked me in as of late. So Danielle and I, we started rewatching the series back in January. So we started from season 1 all the way to season 8, finished it up, and then we were kind of like, well, shit, we don't really have anything good to watch. Let's just re-up it. And we started the series all over again. And during that time, I started looking up YouTube videos on Game of Thrones. So I went down a complete goddamn rabbit hole, man. Shout out to Alt-Shift-X, Talking Thrones, and Gray Area. And if you're interested in watching some really good Game of Thrones videos, those would be some channels to definitely check out. So yeah, this Sunday was the 2nd episode in the final season. I'm not going to give away any spoilers just in case there's someone that's listening that hasn't watched the most recent episodes or maybe hasn't even seen the show and eventually they want to delve into it. But what I will do is I'm going to give you all my prediction. So you're going to have to bear with me because I'm a goddamn nerd and Game of Thrones is the shit. So here's my prediction. Jon Snow is Azor Ahai. He's going to be the one that kills the Night King. He'll become the next king. Dany is going to die. She's fucking done for sure. Jon might even be the one that kills Dany. I don't know. Tough to say, but she's donezo for sure. It kills me, but I think the dragons are going to go as well. So those are the only predictions I'm going to give. Goddamn, I cannot wait for next week's episode because it's going to be wild as hell. On top of that, Avengers Endgame drops, so holy shit. Next week is going to be wild as fuck. But yeah, Jon is going to be Azor Ahai. He's going to kill the Night King. He's going to become the next king. Daenerys is going to die. Mark it down, my friends. All right, so enough nerd shit. Let's get into it. So I was very, very fortunate enough to have Tyler Kershaw of Funeral Advantage come back onto the show, sit down with me, have a conversation. First, repeating guest on Create and Destroy, which is really cool. I guess I'm not doing too shitty of a job since Tyler was willing to come on, which is awesome. And last time he and I spoke, we discussed at length Funeral Advantage's previous release, Please Help Me, which I really, really liked. And I thought it was such a great release. And when Tyler and I talked, we really delved into the tumultuous experience that he was dealing with and the shit that he was going through at that point in his life when he was writing the lyrics, the songs for Please Help Me. And so this time around, Tyler and I talked about Funeral Advantage's most recent release, Nectarine. That came out in February. And man, it's such a great release. I love the record from start to finish. It really is awesome. Some of my favorite Funeral Advantage songs up to this point. And so Tyler and I talked about some of the differences in terms of the lyrics that he wrote for Nectarine and how that is different from the lyrics that he wrote in Please Help Me, which I thought was very, very interesting because yeah, Please Help Me was really Tyler kind of putting it all out there and letting people know he was going through a really rough time. And so we talked about that, and we talked about how Nectarine was somewhat more of a way for him to kind of scale that back a little bit and maybe not put the focus of the lyrical content and the song specifically on him. So in this album, you see more of Tyler drawing on others or drawing on outside sources for the lyrics and for the themes of some of the songs on Nectarine. You know, one of the things I love about doing this podcast and doing this show is that I really get to learn about all the energy and time and effort and hard work that it takes these artists to make the music that they make. And in speaking with Tyler, I really got that sense that he puts so much thought and so much energy into his music. And I do think it really shows and it really comes off in the final product. So yeah, so shout out to Tyler for coming back onto the show. Shout out to you guys for letting me be a nerd. So enough of me bumbling and stumbling. Let's get right into it. Here is my conversation with Tyler Kershaw from Funeral Advantage. All right, Tyler, how's it going, man?
It's going well. How's it going with you?
Pretty well. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so honored that you're willing to come back on. I was thinking, he probably thought I did such a shitty job. He's not going to want to come back on. So I think that's pretty great that you decided to come on again.
No, I had a great time last time. I'm completely happy with coming on again and talking to you. I had a nice time last time, so I was excited to do it again.
Hell yeah. And when we last spoke, the 1975 hadn't released their album yet. So I wanted to ask you, what did you think of their album?
I liked it a lot. I listened to it on the train to work the day it was released, and it was very good. I mean, I listened to the singles leading up to that, like Love It If We Made It and Two Time and stuff like that. I was really into the singles. I mean, I find that they normally like shine on their deeper cuts on their album, like not like the singles. Like I love the singles, don't get me wrong, but like some of the really shining moments are from the non-singles on their albums. I mean, that also happened with this album. They did a really, really good job all around, and I'm excited for the second part of the album that's coming out too. I think it's coming out end of next month, I think.
So, and I know we talked about this last summer, but it's just so wild that they're releasing 2 albums in such a short span of time.
Yeah, it must be like, I mean, people like that are in bands like about as big as mine, like it must be nice thinking about like not having to have a 9-to-5 job and being able to like write music for like an actual living and like not have to like worry about like, because I do the 9-to-5 and then I come home and like from 5 till when I go to sleep I'm making music or I'm like doing something having to do with music. So I mean I'd be interested to see like what it was like to like take a year off and just kind of do music 24 hours a day for like an entire year to see like what kind of album I could create, what kind of art I could create, you know?
Yeah, I feel like I mean, anyone that does something artistically, like to be able to devote yourself wholly to whatever that is, you would probably create something that would be really awesome, I would think.
Yeah, but then again, you kind of have to, when you're an artist, you kind of have to live a life worth commenting on. So like if I just spent time like making music, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna be like one of those hardcore bands that writes about like hardcore music all the time? Like I always hated that shit when it was like guys yelling about going to shows. Like who the fuck cares? Like,
so shit, man. Because I work too, man, and sometimes like I come home from work and I'm shot and just like, oh, I don't want to do a fucking thing but sit on my couch. Leading up to, because I'm assuming, obviously a lot of work is going to be put into creating your music, but I would imagine that leading up to the release of the album that there's some loose ends or some things that you have to kind of get together. Couple that with working, like what's going through your head when you have an album that's set to come out and you also have responsibilities with work?
Well, the album and the art comes absolutely first in my mind. If someone at my job was like, hey, listen, we need you to cut back on the whole like music thing while you're here, you need to kind of focus on here, I would absolutely like, that would fall by the wayside for me like completely. I would definitely quit my job if it meant that I couldn't like create art. So like it's, I don't know, like what's going through my head when I'm when I have to like deal with those responsibilities. I make sure to get a job that like I can leave my job there. Like I think when we last spoke, I was working for a home goods online company, and the big thing with like the big thing with my boss there was like they would always get mad at me for like not bringing my laptop home and not like checking my email on my phone when I was home. And I was like, I'm not gonna fucking do that. Like I'm too old to be like, I don't know, I'm too set in my ways to be going off and like doing work while I'm at home. Like my main thing is to get a job that like I can leave my job at 5 and like I don't have to deal with it until 9 the next morning or whatever. That's like a big thing for me. So that leaves me open to be able to create a lot more, I think. And when I was at that home goods company, like I feel like my creativity level was like at an all-time absolute low, and I had to get out of there. So I got out of there, I got a better job, and I'm much happier now, and I'm actually I'm like making a lot more music and producing a lot more. So it's a really good feeling to feel that. Finally. That's
really awesome, man. Yeah, my job is the same way like your current job, where I work and then my work stays there. I don't have to do shit at home. I'm not expected to do stuff at home. And it's insane how many people I speak with that's not the case, where they're expected to do stuff outside of work, outside of their working hours, or they're expected to work more than 40 hours. That sucks so much.
Yeah, if anything ever got in the way of like what I actually want to do, like I would absolutely just cut it out of my life, be it like someone in my life or like a job or whatever. Like I immediately would just cut it out because it's the most important thing to me. It's the only thing that makes me feel like very, very happy. So I'm into that. I'm into cutting things out like that.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Before we delve into Nectarine, which, my God, man, such an awesome album. I wanted to talk about House of Harm because I recently spoke with Mike Rochford, and when he and I was speaking, he was telling me that you have been joining them for their live sets.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of like on as like an auxiliary member. Like I'll help them with tracking and engineering some of their recorded stuff. I'm helping them with like their album that they're making right now. Like Mike will come over if he has an idea, and he'll like come record it at my house, or him and Cooper will come like hang out in my room while like we like kind of like just mix some things together, and we'll bounce ideas off each other. It's been like a really, really cool relationship. But I mean, basically it's still like Mike and Cooper all the way 100%, but I'm just kind of there to help them along, because I've always respected their art. I was a big fan of their old band when we used to play together, and then like they started this band, and like it just kind of took off for them. And I don't know, I've always been a big fan of their output. So I mean, to help them with that has been like super rewarding. It's also like kind of like kickstarted me into like kind of creating a little bit differently myself, because like seeing Cooper and Mike work together, it's like very inspiring. It's like complete therapy to watch them work together, because they're like such a symbiotic, weird, it's almost like they're one connected person when they're working. It's very, very refreshing to see, and I like watching it, and I like to be a part of it.
That's really awesome, man. Yeah. And how has that affected what you do with Funeral Advantage, being able to play with House of Harm live, and then also maybe to work at least to some degree with Mike and Cooper?
So it's weird, because I've live with them, I'll be playing guitar, and I'll play like synthesizer and stuff like that, like help out here and there with their live stuff. But in regards to Funeral Advantage, it's kind of it's weird, because we lost a member recently, so we needed to I'm actually starting to play guitar again in the band. And I think a couple months ago I stopped playing guitar in Funeral Advantage. I started just like singing live, because I wanted to like express myself a little bit more. But now, like out of necessity, I kind of have to start playing guitar again. And I think that the couple months that I've been with House of Harm, like kind of hankering down and like practicing my instrument a little bit more, changed the way that I write a little bit, but it's more so changed the way that I play live. Because I think that you'll see, like if you used to see me play guitar back like a year ago, you see me play guitar with like Funeral Advantage, then you saw me singing with Funeral Advantage like solo vocals or whatever. Now when you see me play guitar with Funeral Advantage, I think it's going to be a lot different, because I think I move a lot different. I'm more comfortable with my instrument now, so it's definitely helped me in that regard. But also seeing Mike and Cooper work together, and like Cooper has like a degree in audio and stuff like that, so he's like, I'm constantly like asking him questions, because I'm completely uneducated on that whole thing. Like a lot of my magic comes from me not knowing what the hell I'm doing. I'll like constantly be asking him questions, and he'll like kind of teach me how to record stuff, and that's kind of helped me mold like the new Funeral Advantage songs that are coming together. Like it sounds they sound very full and very well produced, and it's just by my own hands currently. And like with Cooper and Mike's guidance, it's kind of breathed a little bit of fresh life into it for me, which I'm pretty excited about.
Hell yeah, man. I got to give you credit. If it wasn't for you, I'm not sure I would have learned about House of Harm. And I spoke to Mike about this. They're making some of my favorite music right now. So
they're fantastic. Yeah, anytime. So
let's delve into Funeral Advantage. You released in February Nectarine, which I was anxiously awaiting that album, and it did not disappoint in the slightest.
Thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say.
You're very, very welcome. So yeah, we kind of talked about this, but like leading up to that album being released, because there's a little bit of a difference as far as the focus, I'll say, of the lyrical content. And I do want to talk to you about that. So it's a little bit different from Please Help Me as far as the lyrics go. So leading up to it, Nectarine being released, what was going on in your head? What were some emotions that you were kind of dealing with, or how would you anticipating people to receive the album?
I think my main emotion leading up to it was kind of relief. Like I think we spoke last time about this, about how like I finished the album on New Year's Eve, on the New Year's Eve of 2018. So it was like December of 2017, this album was done. Like all the songs were like done and finished. And like, I don't know, I just kind of like sat on it. After we spoke, like I sort of just like sat on the songs for a little bit, and like I was just like sitting on them and didn't like have any desire to do anything with them, because I don't know, I was just kind of like going through a weird rough patch mentally. But then like life started to sort of like come together for me, so I was able to get a little bit more focused and like kind of make a game plan with the new label that I was talking to like release them, because like I've been speaking with Sleepwell for a little bit about releasing them, and like then I kind of chickened out of it. I was like, I don't want to really release these songs. I want to like maybe make something else. But I don't know, the songs kind of like came back to life for me, and I decided that I kind of wanted to like follow through with them. And so like as soon as I decided that, like I sort of had this like wash of relief come over me in the sense that like I'm finally like getting these off my chest and getting these out into the world. And I'm one of those guys that can't really work on the next thing until the previous thing is done. I like wasn't making music for a little bit there. Like I was just kind of just sitting on these songs being like, well, this is the album that I have or whatever. But and then I released them, and I don't know, I'm working again. I'm starting to like work on music a lot more again. I'm getting creative. I'm getting like inspired and stuff. So that initial wash of relief of just having them off my chest kind of also transferred into like the relief of being able to write again, even though I wasn't consciously like not writing. But I don't know, my body just didn't want me to move on from that project until it was like over and done with, like over and out into the world.
When you're sitting on songs for that long of a time period or that stretch of a time period, do you get anxious about that? How is it that you feel when you're sitting on those songs and you're not sure when they're going to be released into the world?
Yeah. So anxious is a pretty good way of putting it, but the anxiety kind of relieves itself after a while, because I mean you sort of just get used to it. You get used to the idea that these songs aren't going to come out, and this is just an album that I've made, and they're not going to come out. So anxious is a good way to put it, though, because like you get in that mindset of like, okay, the album's done, let's release it, and it's like, but is anyone talking to me about releasing it? No, am I talking to anyone? No, like I'm kind of just like putting it out there, putting like a worm in a couple of people's ears, like, oh, I have these songs or whatever, and they're like, oh, can I hear them? I'm like, I'll like shy away from that. I'm like, nah, I don't really think you should hear them. And like, I don't know, I went for a long time with just like having the songs and not having any intention of releasing them, and then the anxiety sort of just washed away, and I forgot about them a little bit. And then like I don't know what happened. I don't know what the catalyst was, and like the breaking point for me was in wanting to release them. I'm not sure what happened. Something just snapped in me where I was like, yo, these are good songs. Like I was listening to them one day, I think with like a friend or something like that, and we were both like, yeah, these are actually very good songs. We should just like reach out to a couple of people. And like I started speaking to some people that have been talking to me back when Please Help Me was released, like Elise from Sleep Well. Yeah, we were speaking, and she ended up wanting to do them, so we did them. It was like a nice little deal we had going on. It was nice. It worked out for everyone involved. It was really good.
So did you have doubts about the songs? Were you maybe not as initially as pleased with them as maybe you thought you would be eventually?
It wasn't the songs themselves. It might have just been the way that I had approached recording them, because I've been hanging out with Cooper and Mike a lot lately, who know a lot about like recording, and all my recording knowledge comes from me just trying to do it myself in the past. And I tried a bunch of new shit with this album with Nectarine. That was like trying like some like weird experimental recording techniques that like didn't exactly pan out, didn't really sound good in the finished product after I had it completely mixed. So I had it mixed by someone else, and then I don't know, it was strange. It was sort of like happened, but it wasn't that I was displeased with the songs. It was just that I was displeased with sort of like the way I did them. So I sort of re-recorded a bunch of parts that I had tried to like be experimental with. I re-recorded a bunch of those parts, and they ended up sounding good. And then after you're sitting with a song for so long, so you know how like if you repeat a word too many times in a row, like the word starts not to make sense, and you start to like wonder if it's a real word. I started like wondering, like, is this a song? Like, does this make any sense to anyone besides myself? Because a lot of like the flash bang and the flash and the lightning in a bottle thing comes from like you getting hard about those songs as soon as you write them and you want to release them immediately. But like sitting on a song for a year and listening to the same song for a year, it gets like monotonous and sort of like, is this a song anymore? What the fuck? Like, what am I doing? What is this? And then like you just sort of like try to forget about it to alleviate that feeling, and that's kind of where I was in the middle of last year. But then I sort of snapped out of the funk that I was in with that.
Shit, man. So then I'm not alone in that feeling. Like I'll write riffs and I'll be so excited, and then I'll record them on my phone, and maybe like a week or so later I'll listen to them like, oh, this sucks. And then maybe like a week will go by and I'll listen to it and I'm like, this is actually pretty cool. And I keep going back and forth.
Yeah. And it's good to save those ideas, because I mean like a lot of like the really iconic moments in Funeral Vantage songs are from like songs I recorded like 5 years ago that I just like shelved or whatever. But it's a good activity to try and like write something as often as possible, even if it's shit. If it's a shitty song, like you're still having fun doing it. Like that's what I've been doing lately. Just like for every like 5 shitty songs, I'll write like one amazing song, and I don't know, that's definitely worth it. And like the 5 shitty songs could have one really cool moment in it. Like the bridge of Equine, I don't even know how to say my own song name. The bridge of Equine was from a loop that I had on a loop pedal from like 2007 or something like that. Like I just had like, it's like one loop that I was like, maybe that's a bridge. That's in the same key. That's the bridge of the song. I I did it and it worked together. So I used it. I mean, nothing's ever dead really, you know?
And so you sat on the songs for some length of time, but how long did you work on the songs that would become Nectarine?
It's weird. I mean, I sort of subscribe. I used to subscribe to like the sort of get the whole song done in a day mindset. So a lot of those are just like just a day of just like kind of, I wrote a lot of the songs when I moved into my new apartment. So like I had like a lot of time and a lot of like, I had a very comfortable new like living situation. So I was just able to like kind of hang out all day and like on the weekends, just like write one song per day or whatever. And like I ended up writing like 20 or 25 songs from that. And then like a couple of I think it was Take Me Down and Stone Around Your Neck that I spent a couple days on, which is funny because like Stone Around Your Neck is the longest song on the album. And I think that translates from me like taking so long with it. I took like a couple days on that song. And I don't know. It's I don't know. I wanted to include it because it's like, it's an interesting song. And I worked really hard on it. And I don't know. I think it's also like one of the most funeral advantage songs on the record if you're like listening to it in the span of like what sounds like me, you know?
Yeah, definitely, man. And you know, we talked about this at length last time when you and I spoke, but just the craziness in your life during the time of Please Help Me. So with Nectarine, how had your circumstances in life changed this time around?
I was not in the same headspace as Please Help Me anymore because I mean it had been like a year since that whole like traumatic experience had happened, and I was just sort of out in the world now. I was starting to hang out with my friends more, or like be more social, like kind of hang out and go out and stuff. And I had gotten like a really nice, like the apartment that I live in right now. Like I feel like it's the nicest place I've ever lived in. It's like really, really nice. And I don't know, I was just in a different mindset when I was recording the Nectarine stuff, and it was just kind of, I don't know what kind of circumstances changed beyond that. Like maybe it's just like the actual physical environment that I was in, but that kind of stemmed into my mental state being better. And I think that it's weird. I've always been like really sad when I'm writing funeral advantage stuff, but like I was relatively like not sad, I'm not happy, not sad, but I was just like relatively just like normal. Like I just felt like normal when I was writing this music. And I don't know, some of the songs are a little dark on Nectarine, but I mean, that's just kind of like how the human psyche is, at least from my perspective. So it was nice to be able to like write an album that was like not like wrought with turmoil and like trauma, you know. It was a fun experiment to do. Not that it was like a purposeful experiment or like I was like, let's try to be happy this time. It was different, yeah, very different from Please Help Me in a lot of ways, mentally and completely physically and environmentally, I think.
Yeah, Please Help Me is like a fucking gut punch, man.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, there are definitely themes of sadness still within Nectarine, but yeah, Please Help Me is just completely wrought with sadness. And you know, I was reading that you were having a difficult time relating to some of your previous releases, and that you wanted to make music that focused on something other than yourself and your experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, why is it that you had difficulty relating to some of your previous stuff?
When I say like previous releases, I really just mean Please Help Me, and probably like the title track, The Body Is Dead, which is like a very sad, like in my opinion, that's like one of the saddest songs I've ever written. It's like, it's sort of like within the same theme of Please Help Me, just without like the heartbreak breakup aspect of it. It's just sort of like just a song about like depression and depressive episodes and like feeling suicidal and stuff like that. But I mean, now that I'm like older, like I wrote that song when I was like 22 or 23 or whatever. Now that I'm older and like I've had all these experiences happen to me, like I don't know, like I've been having a hard time like feeling the same way as that anymore, and like kind of getting into the same shoes as the person that wrote those songs, you know? I have a completely different life now, and I guess every artist kind of goes through that. I'm sure like the Killers, then they listen to Mr. Brightside, it's not like they can't really get in that same headspace because they're not like, I guess maybe actually a better example would be like that, you know, that band Ceremony, like the hardcore band Ceremony. So like their first two albums were like very hard power violence-y, like very fast. And then like their newest album, what's it? The L-Shaped Man?
Yeah, I believe that's what it's called.
L-Shaped Man. That's like, it's like a sort of a softer like post-punk album, and everyone kind of gets mad at that. But at the same time, like you can't expect these guys to be in the same headspace they were when they wrote Violence. Like that's not how, that's not how the human body works, and B, that's not how art works really. You're kind of like writing where you are, like they're in a more comfortable place. They can like, some of it's environmental, I guess, like they're in a more comfortable place like musically, and also in a more comfortable place like maybe financially, because like when they wrote Violence, I'm sure it was like they were poor and hungry and just like basically like homeless, and now like they're probably doing pretty well for themselves, and they're pretty well noted within the music scene. So they can't be expected to write that kind of stuff. And it's the same with like my shit. You know, I can't be expected to write the same stuff when my life is completely different. You know, it's I could go back on with that same example and like talk about The Cure for an hour with you, but I'm not going to do that.
There was at least some intention to scale back some of that melancholy and the morose nature of some of your previous songs, because I'm guessing then maybe did you feel that you peeled the onion back a little too much?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that the onion was peeled back a little too far, and it's like the inside started to rot a little bit, I think. But no, I was like, yeah, I felt like I kind of like gave a little bit too much of myself on that last album. And like, I don't know, like I'm thinking about like my future and like my kids listening to Funeral Advantage and stuff, and like what kind of mark do I want to leave on like the future? Do I want my kids to listen to like Please Help Me and like hear what was happening with me during my life? Like that's kind of cool. Like if you think about it, like if my dad like wrote something like that when he was a kid, like obviously I'd want to like hear about it, I'd want to hear it. But I can only imagine how that would feel like for him if like in a part of his life that he probably wanted to forget about, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, man. And, you know, did you find that it was difficult for you to write lyrics that weren't as focused on you as the main focal point, where you're not these lyrics are definitively about you being the main character, we'll say, of the story?
I didn't find it like difficult to do, but it definitely was a conscious effort to be like, okay, so like this, I'll often write lines that start with the word I or start with the word and stuff like that. Like I've been making a conscious effort to like try not to get into the traps that I've been led into before with like writing about myself. So I was trying to just kind of like, as I told you before, like I was like trying like a bunch of experimental like guitar recording stuff, like bouncing sound off of walls and stuff like that, which didn't end up sounding good at all. But like I was also kind of like experimenting with like the way I would approach writing lyrics. Like I would kind of experiment with like, oh, maybe I should write this about like, I've ran out of traumatic experiences, not really ran out, but I'm sort of done writing about that. Maybe I can stay in my comfort zone by writing about other people's traumatic experiences or other people's sort of like daily troubles that they're dealing with. It wasn't difficult, but it was definitely a conscious effort that was made. And it was, I think that it made the album a little bit more interesting as a result of that.
Absolutely, man. And I do agree that even for myself with stuff that I write, I talked about this with Kyle Bates from Drowse, that a lot of times it's very easy for me to write when I'm feeling sad or depressed, because I just feel like stuff just kind of flows out of you. And
yeah, you kind of need to get it off your chest. You know?
Yeah, it seems so much easier. And when I try to write stuff where it's not just that, or I'm not necessarily the focal point, where I'm more or less trying to write a story, for me, that is much harder. And so I want to give you credit, man, because I think the lyrics on Nectarine are excellent, being that you're not just the focal point and it's not just you kind of doing like an emotional dump, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it definitely felt good to get it all out there at the time. Looking back on it, I mean, it's one of those things where like you say, you're in like a group of friends and you say, like you make a joke and no one laughs at it, then like you're up at 11 o'clock at night and you're like, what the fuck? Why did I say that? You know?
So I want to talk to you about the song Pt.2, because that song is fucking awesome, dude.
Sure. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And I absolutely love that there is saxophone in that song. I'm such a big fan of sax being included into a song. Yeah, my friend Javier did that, and it's I don't know, it completely made the album. Like as soon as I back when I was recording it, I was like maybe unsure about this song, but then I heard the saxophone that I wrote out and like composed the saxophone for it, but I don't know how to play saxophone. I really just thought saxophone was blowing into it and like hitting buttons like a recorder, but it's not like that at all. You gotta like put your tongue a certain way and shit. Like I don't know how to play saxophone. My friend Javier does, and it just completely made the song for me. I was like, this is like my favorite fucking Funeral Advantage song. Oh, it's so good. I don't know. I got it. My hat's off to Javier on that one. He's very, very good. That's all. So, dude, you composed what he played? Yeah. So, like what I did was when I wrote it with like a synthesizer. Basically, I was just like, I put like a horn synthesizer sound on like a Juno 106 or whatever, and like kind of just did the synth line to it. Like just wrote it on like piano or whatever. And then like I showed it to him and I was like, hey, do you know how to make this into saxophone music? And he's like, oh yeah, I can do that. And he it just took him like an hour. He's like, give me an hour. And he recorded it and sent it over to me. I was like, this is pretty wildly amazing. It was like, the result was really good. So did you know that you wanted sax to be featured on Pt.2, or was it maybe you kind of like thought about it a little bit and then decided that you were going to use sax in that song? It was originally there was a guitar solo, but I was like, nah, this album already has like a guitar solo on Take Me Down, so I don't want to like
I don't want to hit it too hard with guitar solos or whatever. And I was like, so what can we, like, I'm a big fan of like leaving space in things like I don't know, you ever play the game Metal Gear Solid 3?
No.
Okay, well, there's this big section where you have to climb up a ladder, and it's like just ladder, and you're climbing up a ladder in silence for like 4 minutes, and it's kind of leaving you like this like space of like to think of what just happened in the game and then what's going to happen next. So I was a big fan of like that idea of maybe I should just leave this blank, just like leave that whole bridge section just like blank and have everyone like reflect on what just happened. But then again, not much happens in that song. So I kind of went back on that idea. I was like, not much else happens in that song. Like the vocals and everything. It's like just basically another Funeral Advantage song that's in like a weird sort of rhythm or whatever. And it's kind of like islandy. So that's about as interesting as it got. But I was like, maybe we can do something else with this. And I was fooling around with synthesizer, and I was like, oh, there's a sort of like a weird horn, like a trumpet sound in this. So I fucked around with the trumpet sound, and I was like, it's not a trumpet, but this sounds like saxophone to me. Let's hear what it sounds like with saxophone. And then I transposed it and gave it to Javier, who was able to do it. But yeah, I hadn't always heard, it wasn't like I was going into the song being like, this is going to be the saxophone song. It was just like this, what needs to be here, what needs to be in the bridge here. I'm a big fan of arrangement and like, oh, well, we need to build up the tension here and then release it, build up the tension and release it. And there was a space to have like a big release there. And I think that the saxophone is like the biggest release, so to speak, on the album.
As you're saying this, I'm thinking to myself, there's a lot of thought that goes into your music writing, right? Like you spend a lot of time thinking about your songs and the writing process and how everything is going to sound.
Yeah, me and Mike and Cooper get into that a lot. Like, oh, like this is like there's a like we analyze the Cure's music a lot and how like much of a genius Robert Smith is for like being able to write like tense parts or like be able to like take formulas of songs and apply them to like places that shouldn't be applied to. But like we analyze that endlessly, and like I've always been like a huge fan of like, oh, so why does a solo work so well there? Why doesn't this bridge work? Why doesn't, like, it's in the same key, it should work or whatever. But I'm a big fan of like it's mathematical in a way, but it's also like it's a big feeling thing. If it was based on mathematics completely, I would suck at it because I suck at math. But I mean, it's more of like a feeling thing, but it's also can be very mathematic, and I'm very fascinated by that. And I try to apply that to my songwriting like a lot. Do
you think it's a positive, a negative, maybe a little bit of both in terms of writing music in that way?
Oh, it's definitely both. It's definitely like, oh, so the positive would be like, oh, I've cracked it. Like I know what I can write this song really fast because I know what needs to be here. A bridge, like a minor bridge needs to be here, or like something like a key change. Like, and Take Me Down, like it took me forever. Like there was nothing happening in that song for like a little bit. Like that was the other two. Those were one of the two songs that I was like working really hard on, like Take Me Down and Stone Around Your Neck. But Take Me Down has a key change in it, which like I've never done before. And I don't know, I've always wanted to do one, and I was like, this song needs something. It's just a Funeral Advantage song right now. It's not like, this isn't really setting it apart from any of my other music. Like, what needs to happen? And I was like, a fucking key change. That's what needs to happen. And I made it happen somehow. I like analyzed a bunch of like, I didn't know, there's no way for a layman like me to be able to read up on how to do a key change. Like I don't understand how like music theory works really. But I just listened to a bunch of songs. Like there's this one Owl City song that has like 3 key changes in it. And I just analyzed, well, where did he go from this chord to that chord? How did he bridge the gap between this chord and the chord or the key that it ended up being? And I analyzed that, and I sort of just mathematically applied it. So I mathematically applied it to my song, which was easy to do, but it's also like it's a huge negative because like if you get into that sort of there has to be a rhyme or reason about why this bridge works here, then you're going to end up in a circle and end up like fucking jerking off all over your own song and like taking too long with it. Like you got to go by feeling. It's like 50% feeling and 50% math is how I've been writing lately. So like you can't let the math overtake the feeling. You can't let the feeling overtake the math, you know?
Fuck, man. I wish I could write songs in that manner. Shit, I'm kind of jealous, dude.
You can just take your favorite song and just like apply letters and numbers to the sections, and then like, oh, I'll write a letter and number for a section here. And it's like, I'm not kidding you. I think it's a very easy thing. I feel like if a dumbass like me can do it, I think like any single person on earth can like properly do it. I'm trying to think of an example of that happening, and I can think Never mind. I can't think of anything. I think Steve Jobs had something to say about that, about like how he could like. No, it wasn't Steve Jobs. It was that guy from. You never see A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe?
Yeah.
Who's that guy?
Oh my God, I can't remember his name.
John Nash or whatever. I'm gonna be.
I can't remember. I remember watching that movie in like a psychology class that I took in high school.
Whoever's listening to this is screaming at their fucking iPod. Right? Like, it's John Nash. But no, I think it might be John Nash. Whatever. But he had in that part in that movie that's like he mathematically broke down what it is to hit on a girl, like how to like pick up a girl or whatever at a bar. And I guess it failed, and I guess that was proving to him like, oh, like half of it's like feeling. I haven't seen that movie in like 10 years, but that's the only example I can think of. But nevertheless, whether that was fiction or not, but I guess from what I remember of that movie, he was hitting on a girl using a mathematical equation and ended up getting slapped in the face, from what I can remember. I don't know.
So yeah, shit, man, this I just find, I feel like is so interesting, and now of course I'm gonna try to have to like figure this stuff out.
Try it. No, I'm not kidding. It's if you listen to any pop song, it's just formula. It's legitimately just formulaic. Everyone's doing the exact same fucking thing, but it's all about like, and if you think about it, every vocal melody and every guitar part has been written so far. It's just combining those things. I hate to keep using analogies, but do you ever go to like Wendy's or anything and see this giant soda machine that like has like the touch screen?
Yeah,
and it has like literally like billions of options that you can do, like with like diet and non-diet and like mixing Coke and lemonade and shit like that. Like it's like that with songs. I think like you can get a Coke by just pressing a single button, or you can combine Coke with chocolate milk somehow and make a disgusting mess, kind of like I have.
So I want to talk to you about the song Black House. Man, sure. That song is seriously so goddamn good. So first thing, what the hell is that noise at the beginning of the song? Part of me is like, is it someone yelling and it's been distorted? Is it just some noise that has been made on like a synthesizer? So what the hell is it? So
it's my, it used to be, I'm going to mention so many movies during this podcast, but you ever see SLC Punk with Matthew Lillard?
Oh, hell yeah.
So there's a moment in that movie, like I know that I wanted to have a sample of someone saying fuck you at the beginning of that song, because I don't know why. I think it was just kind of cool with like the count and like to have like fuck you and like yelling that. So I used to have a sample of Matthew Lillard there with like the same effect on it. But then I don't know, I kind of got sick of that. I'd been playing it over and over again, and I was like, oh, this kind of sounds kind of goofy or whatever. So like while I was recording, I just like randomly had like a microphone across the room that I hadn't turned off yet. And I hit record and I just yelled fuck you as loud as I could at the microphone. So half of it's like room noise and half of it's like me yelling. And then also it's put through some automation on Logic that phases it really weird. Like the like sort of like twirly sounding, like
yeah.
Sound. So like there's like phaser put on it as well. And I think I also ran it through my guitar pedal board, and I had like a chorus on it as well. So it's a pretty unique sound that I have yet to be able to recreate. But not that I've tried, but I mean, I don't think I'd be able to recreate it. It's just sort of like one of those things in the moment where like, yeah, that's how the song's starting, and starts out with a bang. I was like, that's got to be someone speaking there, because you could kind of tell, but there was that shred of doubt where maybe it's not someone yelling or speaking. Yeah, it's like half like sort of like industrial sort of weird shit, you know? To go back to SLC Punk, do you remember the character that was like the old guy that they hung out with? Yes, yeah, Til Schweiger, the German actor. Yeah. Do you remember how old he was supposed to be in that movie? Like how old his character is? It's going to make me really sad because I'm probably older than him. Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, dude, am I older than that fucking guy was in that movie at this point now? I thought about that the other day. I forget what movie I was watching, or it was like, I was watching Rock of Love with my girlfriend, and one of the older ladies on the show was like, yeah, I'm not going to say the age, but like, yeah, I'm this old. And I was like, that's so old. And I thought to myself, like, fuck, I'm that old. Because, yeah, there's the one my buddy used to jokingly say, like, I'm not old, you assholes, or wherever the line is. And I'm thinking, like, dude, I might be like that guy's age or even older. Shit. Yeah, it's a shame. That guy's cool. I like Til Schweiger. He's a good actor. Yeah, dude. He was in fucking that Quentin Tarantino. What Inglourious Bastards. Hell yeah. Yep, yeah, he was Hugo Stiglitz. Yeah, dude. Movie. Hell yeah. You know, he's Til Schweiger's a German actor. He'd always refused. I'm just gonna give you some trivia really quick. He always refused to wear a Nazi uniform because he's like super, like, obviously he's against Nazism or whatever, but like the only reason that Quentin Tarantino was able to convince him to be in the movie as a Nazi was because he was able to kill Nazis in that movie. He's like, I want like very violent deaths to be at my hands of Nazis, and that's why he was able to be in that movie, or able to give his go-ahead to be in that movie. That's awesome. What a good movie that is. Great. I think it's my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. It seriously is awesome. So another song that I love on the album is Bad Magnet. Probably one of my favorite Funeral Advantage songs at this point. Thank you. And you're very welcome. It seems like the song is about reconciling or coming to grips with maybe a person that you were romantically connected to, or the
person and that the song is about was previously romantically connected to. Could you talk about that song and the meaning behind the lyrics?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that song was about I had some friends growing up. One of them lived in another town, and one of them lived right down the street from me. And like we had always been like a part of the same friend group. Like they went to this like sort of like weird vocational school. I'm not sure what it's called. Like a not vocational, like it's like a Christian, anyway. So anyway, like they went away to like some like religious school down the highway or whatever. And they had always been friends growing up. Like they were always like really close friends because they had like they just had in the same friend group, like their friends were like dating and stuff like that. So like we would always like all of us would like hang out with one another. And I saw like, you know, like you get older and you start to get these like feelings in your stomach, like, oh, maybe like this person's like the right romantic person for me. So I saw them sort of like they would start hanging out alone a little bit more, and like then it sort of came to light that they were romantically seeing each other after a while. And I was like, oh, cool, they were best, like really close friends, like very, very close friends. And they would start like dating one another. It was open for a little bit. Like they were like, oh yeah, this is what we are now. Like we're like boyfriend and girlfriend, like all during like the senior year of high school or whatever. And then college happened, and you don't really realize that like you're not going to speak to anyone you spoke to in high school after you leave for college. And they sort of like grew apart, and it ended up like being like a really violent sort of weird breakup between the two of them. And I always thought that was very interesting, like how, I don't know, like how these people could go from like being so close to being like less close. On the outside, it looked like they were more close because they were dating, but it seemed like he was being a little bit more like secretive after they started dating or whatever. Like he was like trying to like get more time away from her, and like kind of like translated into like them not being together when they left for college and stuff. And that was always really sad to me, that like it grew from being the closest to being less close, and then being complete strangers with one another that don't speak to each other anymore. That was always really sad to me. So that's what the song was like. That's what the main idea of the song was about for me, is like to kind of like see this semblance of closeness from a distance was always refreshing. And then it kind of was sad for me to see it like fade, you know?
Yeah, very interesting, man. And shit, dude, as I mentioned, I seriously fucking love that song. The chorus of that song is so goddamn good. And like whenever I listen to that song, it gets me every freaking time, man.
Yeah, I like that. It's like it's a different sounding song for us, you know? It's more like in the shoegaze vein, you know?
Yeah. Nectarine clocks in at just under 30 minutes, so it's 26 minutes long, 7 songs. Was that the intention when you were working on compiling the songs for this release? Did you know you wanted it to be under 30 minutes?
No, I didn't know that. Actually, there's 3 more songs to the album. There's one that's like exclusive on the Bandcamp, but if you buy the tape, you get the one of the songs. But like, there's 2 other like full songs that they're mastered and mixed, and like they're in the same vein. I just didn't think that not that they didn't fit, because they were pretty similar to the other songs, but they just like, I don't know, I didn't find that the shit that I was doing in the performances was good enough for the album. I think that that was probably a lot of the reason that I didn't kind of move forward with the album to begin with. I was just like, oh, like these 2 songs are like, I want to release an LP, but I don't want to have to record like re-record these 2 songs or whatever. And those were what was holding me back. But then I realized like, oh, like who the fuck cares? Just leave those off the album. Just like, and like put the album out or whatever. But I ended up doing that. But now I have these 2 extra songs that I can do whatever I want with. I might just like redo them for the next Funeral Advantage album probably. I don't know. Like it's hard to say. Like I really like one of them. One of them was my favorite song on the album, which it was supposed to end the album. The song called "On the Street Where You Live." It's like this like really cool, I don't know. It's definitely a very Funeral Advantage song, but it had a lot to do with like, it was like piano, sort of like piano rock, but like sadder, and it was really good. And I'm really sad that I didn't get to do it, but I'm gonna try and do it for either the next, if it fits with the next one, I might do it, but it might not, judging by how the songs are going so far. But yeah, it was never my intention to do a 7-song album. It was my intention to do like 11 songs. Didn't work out that way, but that's life, you know?
Yeah, because, you know, now when I saw the total time of the record, I was thinking like, oh, is his like goal to get under like 30 minutes right around that time frame with his releases? Because I feel like I do appreciate albums that understand when they should end. There are some albums that are longer, like hour plus, that I could get into, but more often than not I like the like 30 to like 45 minute time frame for an album. Yeah,
going back to what we were first talked about with the 1975 album, I think that's one album that could really do with some editing, because I feel like they didn't work with it. They produced it themselves this time, so like there wasn't anyone telling them to like not do so many songs on this album. And I get that they're doing like a double album or whatever, but like I feel like one or two less of the ballads that you hear on that album, I feel like that would have made it a perfect record for me. But I mean, the running time is really still fantastic on that album. And I think it's a great album. It's just that like the only criticism I have is that it could do with some editing. And I've been trying to edit myself a lot more recently. So maybe it would have felt differently a couple years ago about the album, but I still love it.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very tight line that someone has to like walk in terms of an album being like an hour plus. The only album that comes to mind right now that I can think of, I'm sure there's some others, but like Death Consciousness, I think from Have a Nice Life is like an hour. I think it's like an hour and 15, hour and 20, some shit like that. And yeah. I love like every second of that album, but there's not many albums that can keep my attention for more than like 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, like some of my favorite albums are really short, so I appreciate a short TV show. I always think all TV shows should be shorter, all movies should be shorter, I mean, the only detriment to a lot of really great things in this world is that they last too long. Like I've always said that one of my dreams is to go to Japan. Like we have like a lot of fans in Japan. They always like talk to me about like coming over there and like playing or whatever. But I don't want to go for too long. I've always wanted to go to Japan, get off the plane for 40 minutes, walk around, then get back on the plane and leave. I've always wanted to do that because it just seems too long, you know?
Interesting. I'm the opposite, man. I want to go somewhere.
Everyone's the opposite.
I want to go somewhere and just like spend as long as possible in that place.
Hell no.
Yeah. No. So when we talked last time, you told me that you had been like kind of possibly thinking about releasing some like black metal stuff. Have you been writing any black metal stuff?
No, not really. No, I haven't been like really fooling with that much. I don't know. No, I haven't. I'm not really good at doing metal guitar, but I'm better at doing like atmospheric black metal, which I had a couple songs like that before. I don't know. Like I've been recording with my partner. Have been recording like some songs together. Those are a little bit more black metal-y. They're kind of like sort of like darker, like heavier stuff that we've been doing, but not for Funeral Advantage, really, not really, or even just like myself. Like I that doesn't really get me off anymore. I'm more into like pop and like sort of like I've been like interested in like hip hop a little bit lately. So like I've been like kind of going through that, like just like really tight ass pop production. So I'm interested in that, but I haven't been really doing that much black metal lately, or like even listening to it that much. Like there's this new the new band called you ever listen to Gorgoroth ever?
Yeah.
So their old singer Gal from Gorgoroth, he started his own band that's like sort of like you can call it black metal because it's him, but it's more like if Bowie got into black metal. It's really weird. He's like a very strange guy, but like it's like it's very Bowie-ish, but very black metal-y. It's kind of like also like weirdly Scott Walker-ish. It's very cool. I can't wait for that album to come out. It's coming out in, I think, late May, and that's the next like I haven't looked forward to a black metal release in a long time, and that's like the first one that I've been like interested in because it's just doing something different with the genre, and I think that that genre could really stand to have something different be done to it.
Yeah.
Being honest.
When it comes to like metal stuff, like I feel like I'm more picky with metal than most music that I like. The vocals have to be just right. Yeah. The instrumentation has to just be right. The lyrics have to just be right, because I feel like it could be very whack very, very easily. So I feel like sometimes it's very hard for me to find like metal or black metal bands that I really, really like.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely understand that.
Shit, man, I remember you telling me that your partner was like into Giles Corey and stuff. So yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that she's into like writing heavier type of music.
Yeah. It's just like kind of what's coming out of her. It's very, very refreshing to see, because like she's not like classically, like not that I'm classically trained, but she's not like seasoned in recording or seasoned in like songwriting really, but she knows her way around a guitar and like can like play, and it's really refreshing to see. Like she'll be like, okay, let's go to the chorus. She's very knows what she wants. She's like, oh yeah, let's go to the chorus here. I'm like, but we haven't done a verse yet. She's like, I don't care, I want to do the chorus right now. I'm like, say like this, it's fucking awesome to see.
That's
very
cool,
refreshing,
man.
And very, very cool to see like the fever behind her and the push that I used to have when I was a kid writing music. It was really, really fucking cool. So it's really fun to record with her.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome. So what music have you been listening to lately?
Do you fuck with, now this is going to be polarizing for whoever's listening right now. Do you fuck with Greta Van Fleet at all?
I've never listened to Greta Van Fleet. The only thing I know about Greta Van Fleet is that Brooklyn Vegan fucking like shits all over them. That's the only
everyone shits all over them.
That's the only thing I know about them.
People they're the Owl City of like rock right now. They're fucking amazing. They're a really good band, and I understand the hate for them, because they're like, the lead singer not only like does the guitarist write riffs that sounds like Jimmy Page, but the singer literally sounds like Robert Plant, like to a T. It sounds like a better Robert Plant. It's wild. They sound just like Led Zeppelin, but like that's why everyone shits on them or whatever. But like, I don't know. I don't fuck with publications or whatever. Anyone that like is writing about music, like it's like I don't really give a shit about that stuff. So I don't know. I really very truly like them. They're very, very good. I've been listening to. I got one for you. I'm listening to the new Drums album that came out the other day. The Drums album. It's very different.
I didn't even realize that they released an album.
It was a very quiet release. Like it's very soon after their last album. I think I feel like they normally would wait longer or whatever. Also, this Japanese band called 17 Years Old and Berlin Wall. I don't know, one of the guitarists messaged me a while to ask me to listen to his band, and I really got into that band.
Hell
really
yeah,
good.
man. Dude, one of the things I love about doing this podcast is like there's been so many bands that I've learned about that I would have otherwise never have heard about. So like I got to check out these two bands now.
Yeah. That and I've been listening to this band called Bergen Kramer from Rostov-on-Don, Russia. They're like Russian sort of like dark wave, like really weird. It's one dude from. You ever heard of the band Motorama? They're like a huge Russian band.
No, I've never heard of them.
They're like the biggest Russian dream pop band ever, probably. They're huge. They're really, really good. But it's like when you hear them, you'll be like, oh, Funeral Vantage likes this. Like this is like a very Funeral Vantage-esque band. I mean, they're huge. But the singer has like this solo thing called Bergen Kramer that's really fucking good that I've been listening to a lot lately. Hard to find on Spotify, though, because it's in Russian characters. So like, unless you have like a Russian keyboard enabled, it's really hard to find.
Oh, I'll figure out a way to listen to them.
Yeah, try it out.
Hell yeah, man. So shit, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new things to check out. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So you recently, it's been a couple months now since Nectarine was released, but do you have any other stuff planned for Funeral Advantage in the coming weeks or coming months?
So we haven't even all been in the same room together at once in 6 months, probably maybe 7 months. But actually right after, I'm actually leaving right from here to go to do our first practice in 6 months. So we're going to play, I think, a show in May. We're going to play early May. And from there, I guess we'll see. I don't know. I really don't have that much planned other than just kind of keep recording. I don't know if nice show offers come through, we'll do them. If tour offer comes through, we'll do it. But otherwise, I'm not like chasing anything really. I'm just kind of doing my thing, recording, and just hoping that everything works out. Like, I mean, nothing on the horizon really, but I'm excited to practice today. It's been a very long time, and I'm nervous to play guitar, but excited at the same time.
Are you guys thinking that you're going to play in Boston in May?
I'll level with you. I was probably not going to play again. I was thinking about just like not like playing live again. That was like a big idea that was going through my head for like a couple months, which we'd have to get into another time.
Yeah.
We'll relay it soon. But I wasn't gonna play live ever again because I was just like, I didn't find it rewarding enough. But then a couple offers came through that we really couldn't pass up on. So I'm not gonna, I mean, call it selling out if you will, but I like playing, but I mean, I don't like the culture around playing and like the show culture. I really don't care for playing shows that much, and I don't care for, I don't know, everything surrounding it, like the work surrounding it. I really like recording. Recording's like what I like doing. I don't know. Playing is always, I've always had a love-hate thing with playing, because I love it when I'm up there, but everything leading up to and after it just sucks. Like the depression that comes after it just sucks, you know?
Wow. Yeah. So basically I need to get my ass in gear then and get to a show if you guys are going to be playing in May.
Likely. It depends. If I feel really good about the May show, we'll probably play more, but it really, really depends on how everything goes.
So shit, man, then I'll probably be seeing you in May. God damn.
Maybe. Yeah. Let you text me and I'll tell you whether or not it'll be our last one.
All right, sweet. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for your time, man. Like I said,
anytime, Dan.
Nectarine is fucking stellar, dude. So another home run for Funeral Advantage.
I really appreciate it.
And there you have it, folks. That's my conversation with Tyler Kershaw. Again, shout out to Tyler for coming on to the show again, being our first repeat guest, which is really cool. Nectarine is such an awesome album. If you haven't listened to it, I would highly recommend it. As I mentioned at the start of this episode, some of my favorite Funeral Advantage songs are from this release. Black House is so good. Bad Magnet is freaking awesome. And Peach Nectarine, man, I love Peach Nectarine. I love the use of saxophone in that song, and I feel like it works so well with that song and the instrumentation. So yeah, give that album a listen to. Check it out if you haven't. Go out and buy it. And shit, man, if Funeral Advantage is playing, we all better get our asses to a show, because we may not have an opportunity again in the future. So yeah, I'll make sure to leave links in the show notes to how you could listen to Funeral Advantage's music, how you could listen to Nectarine, how you could follow Tyler. So make sure to follow Funeral Advantage, listen to their music, follow Tyler. If you are a Game of Thrones fan and you disagree with me, I want to hear about that. Let me know. I'm curious what you guys think and what your predictions are for the end of the show, because shit, man, John is taking it all. I know it. I feel it in my bones, baby. Anyway, follow the show, guys. You guys are the shit. You know the drill. Get out there, create something cool. I'll see you all next time.